it was a normal, cold February day in Afghanistan.
Who did that intel come from,
A source.
Okay, that, hey, you guys have possible guys inside the wire?
Yep.
Or?
Yeah. Got my credits up because I was a senior with freshman credits.
Okay.
So I was a little bit of a troublemaker, And then I remember when he, turned the fucking gun, and I still remember the rate of fire, man. It was just... When I heard the first fire, he went from left to right, sweeping with the saw. And as I heard the fire, I reached for my pistol, and I tried to turn to get behind the truck to seek cover, and that's when I got hit. And that's when I'm like, fuck, that the pain and everything started radiating, and I'm like, I'm fucking hit. But I got to get behind cover. So I get out from underneath the truck. I try to run, but that's where I collapsed. It was right at the rear end of the driver's side of the truck. Drops his med bag, and he's like, hey, buddy, you all right? I'm like, I'm fucking hit. He's like, it's all right, buddy. It's a flesh wound. And I'm like, fuck you. Because, my guts fell out. I held them in my hand. I had already accepted that I wasn't going to make it, man. The pain and just, I knew my, intestines were exposed, and watching John and everything, I accepted it. If I go out, I go out. But
All right, what's going on, folks? Welcome back to Beyond the Beret. I got a good buddy of mine today, Jose Garcia. And I just wanted to bring him on to share his story with you guys of, being injured and also recovery from injuries that he sustained in Afghanistan, all right? And I wanted to bring him on because I think it's an interesting story going from nearly dying to where he is right now. So hopefully somebody out there watching gets something from this, right? So with all that said, Jose, man, I appreciate you coming on. If you don't mind, just tell the folks who you are, where you grew up, how you grew up, and then we'll get right into your story.
All right, well, I'm originally from California, born, raised half of my life there before I joined the military. Moved to Vegas. That's where I did my teenage years, went to high school there, graduated. Joined the military right from Vegas in 2004. And I knew I wanted to join the Army since I was a young kid. I used to play soldiers as a kid, run the streets, and pretend to be soldiers. And I always knew I wanted to be in the Army. And when I had dropped out of high school. And when I went back to high school, I knew I had to do something with my life because I didn't want a dead-end job. I didn't want to, the same old same, just living, working, and have nothing to show for it. So I knew the military was a way out. So I joined the Army. Like I said, I knew I wanted to join. So once I graduated in 2003, I was gone by 6-7 months after graduation. I was gone in the Army. February of 2004, so I'm coming up on 20 years now. So I joined, and I knew I wanted to be a soldier the whole time. So,
Gotcha. Now, how was upbringing for you? Because I always joke on here that everybody that joins the military is pretty much, we call it humble beginnings, but I'm like, yeah, we were just poor, man.
Yeah, that's right, man. We grew up with very little to nothing. Like I said, we grew up pretty poor, like you said, humble upcoming, and I guess that's one of the reasons why I am the way I am, because not that I was ever ungrateful, but I was always taught to be grateful. Don't complain about what you don't have. Be grateful for what you do have. Yeah. So I was pretty in the lower end of the spectrum, as far as the wealthness.
Yeah.
So yeah, I grew up pretty humble, you could say.
Yeah. But I always find it interesting because, again, like I always tell folks, just because you started there doesn't mean you got to end there.
Correct.
Right? So, and that's a pretty true statement. So you mentioned that you dropped out of high school. Did you have to go get your GED to be able to join the military?
Actually, I went back to high school in time to get my actual high school diploma. Nice. I busted my ass. I did 2 years of work in 1 year. Got my credits up because I was a senior with freshman credits.
Okay.
So I was a little bit of a troublemaker, and then so I did 2 years of work, so I got my credits up, and then I became a senior, and then I ended up catching up on all my credits where I could take half a day, have 2 classes a day or something until graduation. So yeah, it was tough, but that's why I knew I wanted to join, because I was like, if I could do that, and I talked to a recruiter and, told me, we went to Nellis Air Force Base because I was out of Vegas. Showed me a little bit of the military lifestyle, as they say, and I was like, man, this is pretty cool, So I knew I wanted to join.
Yeah. Now, were you the only one from your family that that joined, or did you know about the military from previous folks that served?
I have one of my sisters, and that's it. She's
Okay.
a little older than I am, but she joined. She did 4 active and then 4 in the guard.
Nice.
And she's the one that told me if you want, because I was going to be a Marine.
Yeah.
She's like, do not be a Marine. So she's the one that said, if you want challenge, go airborne, go
Yeah.
SF, go Ranger, go something in the Army. Go, there's challenges within the Army, but do not become a Marine, because once a Marine, always a Marine,
Yeah.
So. And she warned me about the Marines time,
Yeah.
not taking away from the Marines, but, she knew that wasn't for me, so she knew me, so she guided me towards the Army. And actually, I tried to join the Air Force because she told me, but Air Force recruiter never called me back, so I said, man, fuck that.
Yeah.
So Army it was.
Yeah. There's a lot of those stories where guys will go to one recruiter and they'll have a shitty experience, or they don't get a call back, and they're like, okay, fuck it, next. You know what I mean? Now, when dealing with the Army recruiter, how was that for you? At this point, did mom, dad say anything about you joining, or was it like, hey, whatever, you're your own man, going and do?
Yeah, it
whatever
was.
that is?
You're your own. You're 18. You're grown. You're making your own decisions, and they knew that the military wasn't a bad place. Like obviously Iraq had just kicked off, so they knew the Iraq and Afghanistan war had kicked off. So, but there was no hesitation. They're like, if you want to do it, go do it. So they were supportive, especially my mom, because I had to lose a little bit of weight before I joined. I was a little on the thicker side at the time. And she would make me my white rice and my chicken, so I could eat healthier, and lose a little bit of weight. So I could join. But yeah, they were supportive. And they didn't have any hesitation of me joining.
That's awesome, man. So now you decided to go in. What MOS were you, and how was that process? Basic training, AIT. Did you have any issues there at all?
Actually, I joined as a 70. I was initially going to become a rigger, and then I had to have surgery before I joined the Army, so I had the surgery. That contract fell through, and then when I came back after surgery, I joined as a 74 Delta, Seaburn or NBC back in the day, however we want to call it. But I always knew, like, in the Army, like, basic training, you do what you're told, or there's no pushback. I know they got to break you down and build you back up, so I knew basic training AIT was OSET in Fort Leonard Wood. And I just knew, like, you join, you do what you're told, and you could be successful, especially as starting out as a private. And my recruiter told me, hey, you got any referrals? You could join as a PFC, PV2 or whatnot. I was like, you don't understand, my friends can't join the military, even if they wanted to. They had criminal backgrounds, like felonies and shit. So I was like, I'm the only one with the clean record that could join, man. And he's like, but if you refer one friend, you could join as a PFC or something. I was like, no, there is no referrals, man. Not for me. Yeah. And I said, I want to earn all my stripes. I'm going to come in as an E1 and make it to whatever rank I make it on my own accord. I didn't want to have a handout. I knew I had to work for it because nothing in life is free.
Yeah.
So I joined. Basic training was a culture shock just because the people, like, from all around the world, from across the country, just put into one little pot, and it's like you're getting yelled at, and like it was just like, what the fuck did I get myself into at first? Like the whole duffel bag over your head, and you're weak as hell, and your arms are shaking, and the drill sergeants in your face. So it was just a culture shock. But I knew, do what you're told, follow orders, and you could make it. And AIT was a little different. Obviously, they ease up a bit, but it wasn't as much because it's OSET, so you're stuck with the same drill sergeant. So if you're that private, you're that guy or whatever, that's stuck to you, So we did have that guy in my platoon, not just for my platoon, but that got the entire company in trouble. But I knew I didn't want to be like that guy, So I mean, it wasn't. I don't want to say it was easy, but it wasn't hard as well, It was like, I just found it like you could be this, quiet guy in the back and just get shit done. And I had one of my drill sergeants, Drill Sergeant Odom, he was a former group guy, and he was the one that really mentored me a lot, like off after hours or, after mail call, whatnot. So he's the one that really guided me to go airborne and everything, and come to Bragg and everything. So when the orders came out after AIT graduation, he's like, Garcia, land of the free, home of the brave, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I was like, hell yeah, because I knew I was going to go airborne. Mm-hmm. And out of my entire class, 5 of us went to airborne school. and 4 of us made it through airborne school. Because back in the day, when I went through too, pull-ups were a pass or fail event, and one of my buddies couldn't do pull-ups to save his life, and he failed out at the pull-up station. So I mean, and airborne school after AIT, yet again, people say, why do you jump out of perfectly good airplanes? One, they're not perfectly good. If people know military aircraft, they're good. They're not perfectly, but I just knew I wanted to do it. You know, I wanted the adrenaline rush. I jumped, and I knew, you know, keep your feet and knees together and PLF the best you can, you know, if you don't go feet ass head. But that first jump, you know, you get that, woo, you know, the shock, you know, you're actually in midair. And then the black hat say shut up on the next couple jumps, you know, more noises or screaming and stuff. So I jumped and I graduated airborne school and then came to Bragg, and I've been here coming up on 20 years now.
Nice. Now, where on Fort Bragg did you end up?
I ended up in 101st Chemical Company at first under 18th Airborne Corps. Did my initial about 4.5 years there. And then I got orders to the 82nd, so I did an interpost transfer, so a PCS on the same installation. And in the 82nd, I went to Delta Company 2325, the White Falcons. And from there, I was there, which people don't believe it, but I was only there 20 months.
Oh, wow.
People say 82nd, you got to do 2 years at a minimum and blah, blah, blah. Nah, man, I did the legwork because 82nd wasn't for me. I knew, and then my buddy was going to selection and everything, so I was like, I want to go to group, you know. So we in the 82nd, we were on GRF, and we went to the Haiti earthquake recovery in 2010, and I did 100 days in Haiti with the 82nd, and when I got back, I was gonna ETS, but then I extended for a month so I could go make my contacts in group. And I went to group, interviewed with a group Seaburn guy and a battalion Seaburn guy that I was supposed to go to the CRD, the Chemical Reconnaissance Detachment. Mm-hmm. And I did the legwork. I took my own paperwork from the retention NCO to my commander to sign, and then back to the retention so I could get out of the 82nd. I didn't want money. I didn't want nothing. I just wanted to go to group.
Yeah.
And people say, well, you're Mexican, you're Hispanic, why don't you go to 7th group? I'm like, that I just didn't. I don't know why. 3rd group was my calling, man. And it was on Bragg, and I heard 7th was going to move to Florida, and I was like, they got even more hurricanes than we do. I was like, hell no. So I did all the legwork to go to 3rd group, and then I re-enlisted to go to group, and that's where my orders came down. So that was my second PCS move on the same installation.
Gotcha.
To 3rd group.
Yeah. Now, what made you want to leave the 82nd so bad? Was it just you wanted to go do something different, or was it something else?
It was a combination of I wanted to do something different, and it was just the 82nd, people see it as, you know, all squared away from the outside in, and I did too. Being in the 18th Airborne Corps, you hear 82nd, hoo. And then I got there, and I was like, this ain't what the hype is. So I did my 20 months there. Like I said, it was just, and then the leadership that I had at one point, just, we headbutted all the time. So I knew I wanted out. I was like, I can't be conventional. Like this whole, everybody has to look the same, be the same, dress right dress and all that. I was like, this is for the fish. Yeah, I was like, nah, not for me.
You want to share the pin story? As I'm thinking about it, I was like, oh man, he'll probably track you down and fuck you up. So.
Yeah, well, it's funny because we gave him the nickname. His name was Cantwell, but he was always eating, so we called him Snackwell because he snacked very well all the damn time. And funny story, after I got to group, I ran into him after I got out. It was after I got out. I ran into him at Best Buy or something in Fayetteville. And he's like, yeah, I made Sergeant Major. And I told him, I guess if he's staying long enough, everybody makes it, doesn't it? And he did not like that comment. He got a little upset, and we parted ways, and never again seen him in my life. So it is what it is, you know. But
I think there's shitty leaders everywhere we go, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, leading up to this point, any regrets regarding you joining the military, the route that you took? Would you have changed anything different leading up to that point?
There's no regrets. I don't live with regrets. Everything that I do, I think whether every decision I made, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent, or bad decision and some good came out of it, or good decision or you thought it was good and some bad came out of it, I adapt and overcome, man. Like, there's no regrets. The only thing that I think of is when I was going to go to selection before my injury, before I got shot. That's the only thing that I think about, like, man.
What could have been.
Yeah. So that's the only thing, but it's not a regret because, like I said, I'm alive to complain about stuff, so there's no regrets, man.
Gotcha. Before we jump into the third group, like, what advice would you have for, folks that are from that same neighborhood as you, that are trying to figure out what to do with their lives, that are in similar situation, whether it's high school dropout, going back, or don't necessarily have a way out? Not saying it has to be the military, but what advice would you have for your younger self, I guess?
I would say that don't quit and don't accept no for an answer. Mm-hmm. Like, there's always something better out there. There's always somebody bigger, better, than you and whatever. And you could be that bigger, better somebody else in life too. Just don't quit. Don't accept the basics. Don't accept, the lower end of the spectrum for an acceptance as a daily lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Like, there's always better, and you could achieve it if you work hard, because nothing, like I said, nothing in life is free. So you could work hard and you could be successful, or you could be as much in the dirt as you choose to. If you want, get knocked down and stay down, that's up to that person. But and they say it's not just getting back up, it's what you do when you get back up too, because you could get up, dust yourself off, regroup, and be like, well, that shit didn't work, so fucking let me try something else, and then try to achieve a different route, but don't accept no for an answer.
Yeah, that's a good advice. So now you get to third group. How did all that develop? Where'd you end up going? What was the job? And how'd you end up with the, Charlie Company second time, right?
Yep. Like I said, I was supposed to go to CRD, and I wanted to initially because I heard, chemical recon, like, in group, like, you're the CBRN, specialist, the best of the best type deal, and I heard all this hype about the CRDs. And that's where I wanted to go, to be a recon, dude and whatnot, and do work. But a line company ended up snatching me up, Charlie Company to 2nd Battalion, and I get to Charlie Company, and I was like, in the line company, and the only other non-SF dude was me and the supply guy, and everybody was messing with me. Like I said, I have no regrets, and like I said, coming from conventional for about, at the time I got there, I had been conventional in 18th Airborne Corps, 82nd, for about almost 8 years. So when I get there, I'm an E5, pretty seasoned conventional. I know how to be hua, and be squared away and whatnot. But then it's like, I get there, and it's the group mentality, and the guys I grew up with, man, it was different. Like, going by a first name basis, but I called everybody Sarnt, hey Sarnt, like, until they told me, hey, my name's Justin, my name's, this, my name's first name basis. You had to earn your credit. You weren't just, and one of the team sergeants for 3-6, Ben Bittner, when I was in the supply room, he's walking by the hallway, and he stops and he looks back and he's like, who the fuck are you? I'm like, Jose. He's like, okay, who the fuck are you? And I was like, the NBC guy. He's like, great. Are you a dick? And I was like, no, Sergeant. He's like, my name's Ben. He just messed, and I was like, roger that. And he was like, Ben. He's like, what you call me? And I was like, Ben. He's like, are we friends now? Just troubleshooting me, man. I was like, I'm so confused. Like, I'm the new guy in group, and I was like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I was like, what do I do? But that was just Ben Bittner, like, that was his character. He would always mess with and I'm not the only guy I know that he messed with when they were new. So once I started learning, certain people's character and, their persona, like I said, you had to earn and not prove yourself, but you do your job, you do your work, do it right, do it good, go home at the end of the day. You prove yourself to those people, like, and the team guys, like, me and the supply guy, Mario, man, me and that guy did work. Like, we're two peas in a pod, man. Like, I didn't do very much CBRN stuff per se, but I did a lot more supply, and the Charlie took me under his wing So he showed me how to do supply the Charlie way, and he worked my ass off, man. And we just anything the team guys needed, like me and Mario would get it done. And Mario was squared the hell away. Like I never met a supply guy that knew the property book like freaking Mario, man. Like that dude knew. Like somebody would come up, hey, where's this sniper rifle? It went from 3-1, turned in for service, and it came back, but it went to 3-3, and then it got transferred over to 3-4. It's like, how do you know that serial number by memory, dude? Like, I mean, it was just mind blowing how he knew the property book, man. Like nobody's business, and he did work. I mean, he had been there for a couple of years, deployed with them. I think he had about a total of like 10 deployments with the Charlie Company, in Afghanistan, and that from early on in the years, from like 2004, I believe. So, he was doing work fucking years before I got there, so he knew the system. But as far as like the team guys, like I said, I got to know a few of them, like the leadership, the team sergeants, and then some of the captains, And but as far as being on the B team, we had a stellar B team, man. Like Justin, Lane, a few of the guys, Kent, Springer, and then the leadership I had too, like the sergeant major, the company sergeant major, he told me too, he's like, hey, you're an E5. He's like, it's not if you go to the board, but it's when. He's like, you just got to prove yourself. And then sure enough, a few months later, I can't even remember, like 4 months, 5 months later, he's like, hey, you're going to the promotion board. And he said, get squared away, and then you're going to SEER school also. I was like, what the hell? Like SEER level C? And he's like, yeah, you want to get some pre-training? And I was like, no, I'm good. So he he told me I was going to the promotion board and SEER school like simultaneously. I was like, is that like a catch to go to the board? And I was like, I don't know if I want to go to the board if it includes SEER school, like mandate. And then I was like, but SEER school, we did a PMT and I came home early and then I went to SEER school. I knocked out the board. It was, whatever. It wasn't as difficult as I thought. And my sponsor was good to go too. He sold me to the board members, and I got recommended for promotion and everything. Nice. So, but
what was SEER school for you?
SEER school was it was a different, yeah. like I said, man, SEER school is one of those schools that it sucks while you're there, but it teaches you not only about how to survive, but it teaches you a lot about yourself as well. Because like you want to quit, you're like, what the fuck am I doing this for? You're like, this ain't real. But then you get slapped up, into a little TLC, and you're like, why am I doing this? And then, but in 21 days, it's going to be over. So like I said, you want to quit, but you tell yourself not to because it's there for a purpose. The training, you don't really get the grasp of it while you're there. And then I went in January, man, where it was cold as hell. There was nothing during the walkthrough phase. This bush is berries, this bush is, grapes, and this is that. And I tell the instructor, I'm like, hey man, why are we wasting time? Can we just chill? Because everything's dead. That dead tree and that dead tree look the same, whether that's poisonous and that's not. I can't tell the difference right now because they're all dead. I'm like, so what's the point of this walkthrough? I mean, not like there's actual berries. Like if it's a poison berry, I can't tell. I'm probably going to eat it and get sick or die because everything was freaking dead, man. So I was like, and like I said, it was so cold, and then having to do the water swim, and I'm not the best swimmer, man. I built my little floaty out of leaves and, whatnot and the fabric. And when we had to cross that water, man, getting it was like 15 degrees out. So the water was colder than that. And I had my little floaty under my arm, paddling along next to our flotation device that we built for our rucksacks and stuff. Man, when I got out that water, when I got in the water, like as soon as my feet and it got up to my knees, I'm like, our breath taking, and as it got deeper and deeper, I mean, my breath was just going away, man. It was just so freaking cold. It was terrible. But like I said, it was good because it teaches you a lot about yourself, like how not to quit, and how to resist and, survive and stuff. So how to start a fire with nothing, with wet wood, and just how survival skills they're perishable because if you don't do them, you don't practice up, if you don't start a fire, you're going to lose them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, SEER school, like I said, it sucked, but it was a good kind of suck fest, And that's why now I don't go camping. I go glamping because I don't have to embrace the suck anymore.
So now you get done with that. Did you get attached to Charlie Company prior to deploying, or were you still with the B team and you were on loan to him once you got to
No, I was assigned to the company.
Okay.
Yeah, I was permanently assigned.
I guess not the company, but that specific team. Or did the incident take place at the company level?
It took at the company level. It took place.
Okay.
So I was with the B team, like I said, 3230, and so that was before the first deployment. They wanted me to be SEER certified, have the school behind me, and then we deployed that 11-12 trip, and that was yet again a 10-month deployment because
was that when the incident took place?
No, it was a second deployment.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
The 11-12 trip, I ended up doing 10 months myself because that's when 7th Group was moving to Florida and they didn't have their shit together, so we got extended. So like I know group deployments are usually 6 months. When I heard we were doing longer because 7th Group wasn't ready, I was like, all right, whatever, got to do work, do your job. So we came home in 12, and then I did a few other schoolings here and there, PMTs and training, whatnot. And then that 13-14 trip back to Afghanistan, and that's where the incident took place. We deployed October of 13, and then I got injured in February, so 4 months into the deployment, I got injured.
Gotcha.
But January, the month prior to me getting injured, we had another casualty where we lost one dude, and then that was January 15th, and then less than a month, February 12th is when the incident happened with me.
Now, before we jump into that incident, how was your first deployment with Charlie Company? Was it you and the B team just doing work and helping out wherever you can? Did everything go smooth with that first one?
The Charlie told me, he said he was a bit of a dick sometimes. He told me that you're my junior because I was in 18 series. So, but he worked me for about 10 months, and that's what he told the incoming company sergeant major. Like, hey man, I worked the dog shit out of Jose for 10 months, and he never once complained because he would tell me, do this, and I would do it, no questions asked, because I knew that, you got to do your job, so no matter what tasking he gave me, I had to get it done. And sometimes I did it the ass backwards way, but I would get the job done, and then he'd be like, why did you do it that way? I'm like, because that's the only way I knew. And he would be like, well, why didn't you do it this way, that way? And I'm like, because I didn't think of it. If I did, I would have done it that way. So he would just troubleshoot me, but it was lessons, to keep me on my toes, so nothing was just handed out. So that first trip, we did a lot of, if down south, we were heading, doing log runs down the route Hyena, IED alley and shit, and doing log runs and resupplies. And we were just resupplying every ODA, no matter what they needed, we would get it, and any requests, any supplies, any demands that they had, me and Mario and Lane would do work, and we'd accomplish mission, man. And so the first trip, like I said, the 10-month deployment it felt longer because it was nonstop. We went through the fighting season, the non-fighting season, and back to the fighting season. So it was just constant work. We had, I don't even know how many recorded, TGMs, and we resupplied every ODA, man. They did not go without, at the best of my knowledge. So, but yeah, that first deployment was a lot of learning, like how group works, and the difference between like seeing how we do stuff in group versus how conventional does stuff, like IEDs, like we roll up and there's a conventional unit stop, like we hit them up like, hey, what's up? They're like, we think there's an IED over there. We're like, well, is there or is there not? Because we got shit to do. Can we go around you? I was like, we ain't scared. We'll trigger it if we need to, And the dudes I roll with were like a little wild, So, I mean, it was just different things like that, like how conventional and group works, just two different animals, man. So that's where I learned a lot, like how soft mentality, and how to get shit done no matter what. So that's where I learned a lot of the shit. And like I said, the Charlie fucking took me under his wing and just showed me the way. And the Bravo taught me some stuff too, but it was mainly the Charlie that showed me the way.
Yeah, because the Charlie's normally in charge of all the
supplies,
the day-to-day stuff that happens on the base camp, refueling, supplying. Like we take care of like Camp Mayor stuff.
Yeah, right? And I was a Camp Mayor that trip too, and And like I said, I didn't know how to drive a forklift until I learned, and I was one forklift bobcat driving motherfucker. Just you need something moved, I got it. Like there was the old, I think there's a 20K forklift, the one that bends in the middle to turn. We had to move some shit at a calf, and they're like, "Does anybody know how to drive that?" I was like, "Give me about 5-10 minutes." I jumped in that bitch and played around with the levers. Next, I'm the forks are moving. I'm moving the forklift, and we were moving shit all over the place. So
there you go.
That, like I said, there was no like, oh, you're licensed on that. It's just you had to get the job done.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
now, what advice would you have for any support guys that are currently out there, at group helping out? Like, what advice would you give them from your perspective?
Do your job. That's your number one thing. Do your job, and no matter whether it's your MOS job or it's your new assigned job, don't try to be something you're not. Like they said, I heard the wise words of a man once said, "You want to be a cool guy, you want to put your hands in your pocket, let your hair grow out, and do cool guy shit, grow a beard out, go to selection."
Yeah.
So do your job. Like if you're a supply guy, do supply shit. You're a Seaburn guy, do Seaburn shit. Now, as Seaburn, there's not very much to do in a line company. So I got tasked with Camp Mayor. I was a master driver for the team or the company at that. I became the company SSE guy, and it's like I got new jobs that were assigned to me and I did them. So that's what I would say to the younger soldiers or individuals, with trying to get to group or in group, just do your job. There, you can't do more, you can't do less. You could do your job and go home at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. And that's awesome advice, man, because as long as you add value, the guys are going to want you around.
Yep.
Just add value, and guys are going to keep looking for you to help them because they know you're that guy that they can depend on. That's going to help them out, right? So now take me to that day, how you started off your day, and how everything developed, and then we'll go from there.
So the day of my injury, we were out on mission in Tagab District Center. It was an ODB, 3 ODAs and a fleet tac or the tag team from battalion, whatever you want to call it, because they go different names, depending who's in charge. And we got up. We had been getting indirect, all day, all morning and stuff. And then we were getting ready to roll out on a mission, and we were going to have, strategic, positionings for every ODA and ODB and the fleet tac or tag team. And it was a normal day in Afghanistan, if that sounds normal, I guess, like we're getting fired upon, IDF, and whatnot. But we had just, Tico, he had just got intel that we had possible insider. So we're trying to spread the word, and it was a normal cold February day in Afghanistan.
Who did that intel come from? Do you know?
A source.
Okay, that, hey, you guys have possible guys inside the wire?
Yep.
Or?
Yeah. So Tico was our Fox, the intel sergeant, or as he said, quote unquote, intel sergeant, because he wasn't a certified Fox, but he was doing the job. So like even in his email signature block, he had intel sergeant in quotations. He was just a smart ass, like that. But he's the one that found out. He got the intel saying, hey, you got a possible insider threat. So we were trying to spread the word. And sure enough, like the way I remember it, it was about probably noon to like maybe 2 o'clock, if I remember correctly. We were getting ready to go head out and do mission, position everybody for that night. And there was 4 of us having a conversation. We're just bullshitting, And then Tico got the word, and then him and Chewy stepped aside to my rear left to have a sidebar conversation that was between them. Me and my buddy that stood, closer than you and I are. We kept our conversation going, and I remember glancing to my left, and I saw the dude walking up from the Humvees, and I just thought it was a normal Afghan, But then when I blink again, and he had a black and white, I remember a headscarf, going on, and then I remember when he like turned the fucking gun, and I still remember the rate of fire, man. Like it was just. When I heard the first fire, he went from left to right, sweeping with the saw. And as I heard the fire, I reached for my pistol, and I tried to turn to get behind the truck to seek cover. And that's when I got hit. And that's when I learned the phrase, when we use the phrase, he got stitched up. Stitch him up and all that. Because initially when I first got shot, and I guess the adrenaline and everything, like, I felt it. And at first it felt like a sharp needle type deal, but hot. And as I'm turning, I feel, I'm like, oh shit, and then the pain started going. And like I said, I fall down, I go under the truck, and the gunfire's still going on, and I'm getting phased fools of dirt because the fire's, bouncing off the rounds are bouncing off the ground. And I see Josh freaking running like a monkey bear crawl type deal through the bottom of the truck. He bolts. And that's when I'm like, fuck, that the pain and everything started radiating. And I'm like, I'm fucking hit. But I got to get behind cover. So I get out from underneath the truck. I try to run, but that's where I collapsed. It was right at the rear end of the driver's side of the truck. And I'm dragging myself because at this point the fire had just stopped, I believe. And I'm dragging myself and behind the truck. And I'm trying to yell, but I couldn't because my lung collapsed. So I'm like, I'm hit. And I'm dragging myself there, and then I'm lying there, and then the Delta, Chuck, freaking rolls up out of nowhere, man, like literally left field. He just rolls up, and he does like a baseball slide, drops his med bag, and he's like, hey, buddy, you all right? I'm like, I'm fucking hit. He's like, it's all right, buddy, it's a flesh wound. And I'm like, fuck you, because like my guts fell out, like I held them in my hand, so it's like I knew it wasn't just a flesh wound. And the pain, man, just like getting shot, like people say, oh, it's not that bad. That shit hurts. Like there was pain, like my torso and just my abdomen, just pain that I can't even explain, man. And it hurt, and like it burned, like the round. And thank God it wasn't a tracer, because I can't imagine if it was a tracer and then how much more damage it would have done. Mm-hmm. But like I was like, dude, it fucking hurts. And he's like, it's all right, buddy. And then he starts cutting up my clothes, and I still remember when he's cutting off my clothes. We had layers, because you layer up for the code. And then as he's cutting me, and he's cutting my clothes off, and he's like, "What the fuck, dude? You wearing nothing but name brand shit?" I'm like, "They're knockoffs." So even though I was injured, I still made jokes out of it, like they're not real, man. They're Afghan vests, And as he's cutting my shit off, Wes runs up and does yet again a baseball slide. He goes, "What you got?" And Chuck says, "I got a GSW left, chest, abdomen, exposed intestines." And that's when it didn't really hit me until he said it, like exposed intestines. My guts were still hanging out. And he's like, "All right, you're in charge." And that's what, yet again, and I'll get back to it, like when in charge, be in charge. Like Chuck was a new Delta. Wes was a seasoned, experienced Delta, but he told Chuck he was in charge. And as I'm getting treated, as they cut all my clothes off and, to expose the wound, and then I'm watching, as I look to my right, they bring John to the passenger rear of the truck, and he is bloodied up, blood everywhere, just gushing, and Tim's working on him. And I'm looking at him, and then Tim's working on John, and then they're working on me, and I couldn't breathe. And I tell Chuck I couldn't breathe. Like, it was literally, I was like, I can't breathe. Like, people say I can't breathe. Motherfucker, you're breathing when you're talking, Like, I literally couldn't talk. So they gave me a needle D right on site, man. And I tell you what, even though I was going through the pain of the gunshot, that needle D still hurt. Like, that, it's a big-ass needle going through, through your body. So I remember saying, hey, motherfucker, that hurt. And then I tried to reach for it to pull it out because it hurt. And Wes had to sit on my hand for a little while, but as John was getting treated by Tim, and I watched him take his last breath, and his head rolled in my direction. And when I made eye contact, per se, with him, that's where I thought it was the end of it for me, because I was just bleeding out too, and they were trying to give me my IV and everything. And that's why I tell people, there's a greater power, man. Like, when I watched John take his last breath, I was like, fuck, I'm next. I looked up and I tell the Deltas, I was like, hey, man, tell my wife I love her. And Chuck says, you're going to tell her yourself. And I looked at the bright blue sky of Afghanistan, man. As crazy as it was a bright blue sky. And I said, Lord, not like this, not now. And that's where that first push of dope came in, the ketamine and the fentanyl. And I remember the head rush. Like, I said those words, and then I get the head rush. And I'm like, oh fuck, it's a rap coach, and I kept getting treated, and then they did their work, and they're like, hey, we're gonna put you on the litter, and then as I'm lying there before they throw me on the litter, the company commander comes around, and he's like, he had the Afghan governor with him, and he's like, look what your fucking people did, and like he had them like manhandling them, and I still remember, like I said, vividly, they were at my feet, standing there as I'm lying there just doped up at this point, I'm lying there, high on fentanyl and ketamine, and they tell me, hey, we're going to roll you, what side do you want me to roll you? And I was still cognitive, and I'm like, my right side, why would you roll me on my left? And they're like, all right, so they roll me to my right, they slide the litter underneath me, and then roll me back, on the litter, and man, I tell you what, that was another fucking episode of pain, just lying flat. It hurt, man. Like, I couldn't breathe. I was like, even though with the needle D and everything, I was like, I was trying to scream, but I physically could not, from the pain. And I was like, they're like, what? I was like, hi. So they had to like sit me up, and they slid an aid bag underneath me so I could be kind of like sat up. And then I still remember they were still working on me and giving me my fluids and everything. And then by the time I get on the litter, the JTAC comes around. They're like, what's his battle roster? And obviously you wear that shit, but it was cut off, on the patches. So they had to, give him my battle roster, and the bird was already inbound. But I mean, everything happened perfect, like perfect timing, because the Chuck showing up, West, the JTAC, calling in the 9 line. And then I remember they picked me up, they take me over by the quad area, and then they, when the birds came in, you get dusted out, so they, jump over me, they're leaning and covering me from the dirt, from the dust and stuff, and then I didn't know all the casualties, that we had, but I remember I was already high as hell, man. They pumped me with so much damn meds, and but I was aware, and they put me on the bird. And I remember the team guys, I don't know who it was, were arguing with the flight crew team, with the crew on the bird. And I don't know what they were arguing about, but they were arguing about something. Finally, the door shuts. The flight medic fucking straddles me. He knife hands me. He's like, hey, buddy, you're going to be all right. And I'm like high as hell. And then, the feeling of the bird, taking off. And I remember that. And, I remember the flight nurse like saying, hey man, he was talking to me. He was on my rear left, if I remember correctly. He was talking to me like, hey man, you're going to make it. You're going to be good and this and that. And I'm just like I had already accepted that I wasn't going to make it, man. Like the pain and just, I knew my, intestines were exposed, and watching John and everything. Like I accepted it. Like if I go out, I go out, but I just kept trying to fight, like telling myself, if I go to sleep and then I wake up, I made it, this far, just don't stop, don't quit. So we landed at Bagram, and it's funny because Bagram, I was so doped up, like I didn't remember anything about Bagram for years until recently, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. Bagram memories just started reappearing in my mind to the point where I remember later the walls were two-tone. Like, and I text my buddy that got shot with me. I was like, hey man, were the walls two-tone? Like a maroon and a blue color? And he's like, yeah. And then memories of Bagram started coming to me years later, man. Like, but we're coming up on 10 years now. For about 7-8 years, I didn't remember Bagram at all. And that was my story. Like, I could not remember Bagram until recently, like I said. And, but then Bagram, I don't remember, at the time, I didn't remember anything. And I remember waking up in Landstuhl, Germany, and I remember waking up in the ICU, I'm guessing, and all these machines, all these tubes and shit were sticking out of me. I had 3 chest tubes, 2 drain tubes, the wound vac here, the wound vac here, and obviously the IVs and everything. And I remember waking up, and I was an angry motherfucker, man. Like every time I woke up, I was like, I'm gonna go kill somebody. I want to kill him, man. So I remember I woke up in Landstuhl, Germany, and there was a female nurse. And I said, if I ain't breathing on my own, because I had the oxygen and everything, I was like, if I ain't breathing on my own, I ain't a machine. I started getting angry. And I still remember she smelled like sweet tarts, man. I don't know if it was her lotion or what. But she walks up because I was getting angry because they had to put me in restraints because I was, angry. And she walks up and I was like, if I ain't breathing on my own, I'm not a machine. I don't want. She reaches into her scrubbed little pocket, whips out a little syringe into my IV, and I was like, God damn it. Night night. Like, they were not putting up with my shit, man. Yeah. So, and then that was Lansdale. And then at the time, they gave me maybe a 30% chance of surviving. And there was going to be a nor'easter here in the States. And they didn't know they wanted to bring my wife and my mom to Germany or make the flight to make it to Walter Reed. So they made the decision to bring me to Walter Reed, even though, and like I said, I had 30%, if that, because I kept bleeding out, internal bleeding, because all my shit was internal, And I remember waking up, and they're wheeling me out of the hospital, and then I wake up, I go to sleep, like I doze off, and I wake up again, and I'm at the door, like the patio area, and I see the C-17 off in the distance, and I doze off again, and I'm like in and out, and then I wake up again, I'm at the ramp of the bird, and I could feel the heat coming from the bird, because it was cold as hell, man. I'm lying there butt naked, in some blankets, and I could feel the heat coming from the bird, and then I doze off again, and next thing you know, I wake up, and we're cruising altitude, and the flight nurses, the flight docs, they're doing, draining my tubes, my drain valves and everything, and they're giving me all the meds, and I had a PCA, because they're like, hey, you could, every time it hurts, you could just press this button. And I tell you what, man, I pressed that button so many damn times on the way, just because every time I woke up, it's like pain, just internal, and like I said, it's a pain you can't explain, so every time I woke up, damn near, I was like, fuck, it hurt. And like I said, I couldn't talk really, and I'd hit, my PCA and get a drip, a hit. And then we land at Andrews, and they put us on an ambulatory bus, and they bus us over to Walter Reed. And then when I remember getting put on getting off the bus and being wheeled into the hospital, there was a big group of doctors, because there was a lot of casualties. We ended up having 7 WIA and 2 KIA that day. But they're wheeling me into the hospital, and there's one dude in uniform. They stopped me at him, and he goes, you know where you're at? And I'm like, fuck, no, I don't know where I'm at. He's like, you're at Walter Reed. It's Valentine's Day. And I go, what'd you get me? And he's like, you're going to be one of those. And from there, straight into surgery, like wheeled in and straight into surgery. And like I said, I got shot on February 12th. I got there by Valentine's Day. That's how critical I was that they got me here by Valentine's Day. I remember it was during the day too. So it was like a quick turnaround for them to fly me from Germany to here. And then my wife was there on the 15th. I woke up days later because I was in an induced coma, just surgery after surgery, and when I woke up and I came to, like, I realized, like, oh, shit, I survived. And that's when, like, every time I woke up, man, like, that's when I would look up and be like, yep, like, I'm alive, and just don't quit, and I just kept, and when I saw my wife, it was like, damn. Now I have, even more reason to fight. Yeah. So I woke up. My mom was at the back end by the wall. And then she's like, and then the doctors come in and they're like, you know what happened? I'm like, yeah, I got fucking shot. They're like, do you know by who? I was like, yeah, fucking Afghan. And they started questioning me, see how much I remember. And when they're asking me certain questions, I was answering them. And they're like, how do you feel? And I'm like, yeah, it hurts. It's like I'm lying there. But it was just surgery after surgery, man. My wife lost count after like 7 or 8 since the time she was there. And I remember like one of the nights after my mom had left, come back home already, back to Vegas, I was lying there just in the regular room. And we would go from, I kept going from ICU or the SICU back to the regular floor because they say I was fine. And then something would happen, surgery, and then back to the SICU. So I kept going from the 3rd floor to the 4th floor, back and forth. And like one of the nights, like I said, I'm a pretty funny guy. I think of myself sometimes. One night I was lying there and I feel something wet and cold. And I go like this. I touch by the drain tubes and I go like this and there's blood. I go, oh shit. And my wife's like freaking out. So we start pressing the button for the nurse and she walks in. She comes to my left and she goes, oh no. And I did the Kool-Aid man. I'm like, oh yeah. And my wife gave me like the look, like not now. And I'm just like, too soon. But I tell the nurse, I'm like, hello, first thing, apply pressure. Give me a gauze so I could, apply pressure, something. My wife's over here telling the nurse, you got to get them to the OR, so they start disconnecting the bed and they wheel me out. And yet again, it was just more internal bleeding that they found. But it was like, the way I felt, man, the way I see it, like if I was going to die, I was going to die happy. I saw my wife, told her I love her. But like I said, I'm a pretty funny guy, even in the worst situations, and that was a really bad situation for me.
Now, do you remember exactly, I'm sure from speaking to the guys that were there, like what exactly happened? Now, you mentioned that you saw, I'm thinking it was an NDS guy, some type of government cop or whatever, opened up on you guys. From speaking with the guys, do you know, hey, who took him down? What took place? Like, why was he on the compound? Were they always there? Like, what happened from what you've heard?
So from what I heard, it was a ANSF dude. I still remember he was in DCUs with the black and white rag on his head. Yeah. And Zach is one of the ones that shot him, and Chewy. But unfortunately, people got, messed up, so, but Zach was on the eastern side by the gate. And when he saw what was happening from his vantage point, he engaged the dude. And I don't know if the dude was on, drugs or something, but from what I heard, he got lit up pretty good. And he was still firing. Damn. So, like, when he got hit, and that's why I'm guessing, because one of the guys that shot him said the first shot he took, he missed. He remember seeing the windshield, like, crack on the background. And he adjusted, and then he hit him. And he said he literally, because the dude was holding the saw like this, hip firing.
Yeah, the saw. Was it one of you guys' saw?
Yeah, it was one with the Afghan saw, but it came from us. And that's where I'm guessing they said he like hiccuped when he got hit. So that's why I'm guessing where I was under the truck, that's why I was getting face full of dirt, because he was firing, still, spray and pray. And then when he got hit, that's where those rounds came down in the downward direction and came under the truck. So, like I said, my buddy that was close to me that got lit up, he got shot on the right side 3 times, and I only got the one. Thank God, because mine was all internal. But he got lit up, and then finally like I said, by the time I got to the rear end of the truck, the firing had stopped. So, I mean, it was, if I had to guess, it was probably about maybe a minute of firing, probably, maybe, if that.
With a saw, dude, that's 200 rounds in the fucking belt, you know what I mean? And that's fuck. Even in training, we do what's called the mad minute. We open up with a saw or a 240 and we shoot for a minute straight, dude. A minute? That's a lot of fucking rounds.
Yeah, that's what I would say. It was probably a few seconds to a minute if I had to guess. Like, because like I said, he got shot a few times. Yeah. And he didn't go down till he went down, Yeah. But from what I heard, he took a few rounds.
Yeah. And it was, you said 7 guys total were wounded, and then
2 KIA.
2 KIA. One of them being were they SF guys or just?
One of them was SF, and I didn't find out about him till I was at Walter Reed. Yeah. Out of all the people that visited me, I remember 4 people vividly. A bunch of people visited me thinking I wasn't gonna make it. Yeah. But I remember 4. I call them the 4 horsemen, and I found out, I knew John had died, and he was a support guy. And then I found out from Nate when he came up to visit me. I remember him standing to my left, and he's looking at me and all my tubes and shit, and he's like, "God damn, you're fucked up." And I'm like, "No shit." And then he's like, and then fucking Tico, and I was like, "What's his injuries? What room is he in? How bad what's the deal?" And he gives me this look. And I'm like, "Nate, how bad is he? What injury? Where is he at? What room? What's the extent?" And just like SF dudes are, man, like, you're raw. You got to get to the point. He looks at me, no hesitation, and he just says, "Tico's fucking dead." And I let out the biggest fuck that I could get out, just like, fuck.
Because that was the Charlie, right?
Yes.
The guy that's
acting as a fox, yep. And
He was the one that told you guys about the possible.
Yep. The possible insider. So I remember when Nate told me I hit my PCA trying to just find some relief, man, and that was probably, that hurt big time. Like finding out my, because he was like my brother, obviously brother from another mother type deal, and Tico and I, that trip, that 13-14 trip, man, we had it shit down packed. Like anything you needed. Yet again, the first trip was Lane. The second trip was Tico. Just showed me a lot, taught me a lot, and I knew how to operate. It's like anything. There was nothing too big or too small that he and I could not attain.
Yeah.
There's nothing that we couldn't grab, get a hold of, or acquire.
Yeah.
And so when Nate told me about Tico, I was just that hurt, man.
Yeah.
Being laid up in the bed and just finding out your brother just didn't make it, and I was crushed. Like I mean, mentally, and that's one thing I learned about my injury was, you have to stay strong, man. Like as much as you wanna just say fuck it, and quit, it's kind of like yet again that Sear School story. You want to quit, but you can't, and you shouldn't. You know what I'm saying? So I remember my wife and I, we came up with the phrase like one tube at a time. So like when I lost one of my chest tubes, right, because I was getting better, and we said one tube at a time, man, whether it was a drain tube or a wound vac, and then I was laid up in bed for about almost 3 weeks before I got up and started learning how to walk again. And I say learning because being laid up, like your legs swell up and everything. And without my wife, man, like I tell you what, that I don't know if I would have made it. Like I said, I'm the one that physically got injured, but I know it affected my wife, my son, my family, my friends, that came to see me and everything. But like my wife, seeing how strong she was, keeping her composure, and I don't know if I could have done what she did, man. Seeing me as bad as I was, like, and when you get medevac from a combat zone like that you got to get covered up at first, the first few days, because they had to put like the yellow robe on, like the hair wrap cover thing, and until like they were able to give me like a bath, per se. And it's funny because actually the day before I got shot, I had cut my head open on the door, and the delta gave me 3 staples on my head. So as I was injured, I know I was shot up, but I kept reaching for my head, like, oh, and they're like, what's wrong? And then finally I was like, I got staples in my head, like, and they're like, how'd you get staples in your head? I'm like, I got it cut. And so, like, they didn't know possible infection and everything else, so, everybody had to take the precautionary measures to not cross-contaminate, myself with them with myself, so, but seeing my wife, like, deal with it, like, and just stay cool, calm, collective, man. Like, I knew I had to fight. I knew I had to keep, fighting. And then when I saw my son, and I was like, I got somebody to live for, and like, I knew I had to keep, and I knew I couldn't quit.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to get the hell out. And like I said, I was in bed for about 3 weeks before they told me you got to start walking. I'm like, walking? Like, you realize my guts are all messed up, and like, and then so the first time I get out of bed, we started with just standing up, and I had my IV pole and whatnot. And then like my wife goes to put my socks on because I couldn't bend down because I mean everything still hurt, And my legs were so swollen, she loses her balance and like leaves an indent on my shin. She's like, "Oh my God!" And I look, and I was like, "I can't feel it." I was so doped up, I was like, "I don't feel it." She's like, "Does it hurt?" And I was like, "Nah." And so I started walking. Started with in the room, and I had a physical therapist trying to show me like take a step at a time. I'm like, no shit, I know how to walk, but it's like walking with the pain and everything. And finally, it started out increasing. Like go outside the room, and the recovery phase. Like there was one day in particular. I remember her name was Christina. She comes in, and everything was, I was just in pain, dude. And she's like, okay, we're here to do our walk session. And I was like, I ain't walking today. She's like, but the doctor said. I'm like, I don't give a fuck what the doctor said. I was like, he ain't the one that's in pain. And she's like, so you're not going to walk? And I'm like, not today. And I hit my PCA, and I was like, she's like standing there awkwardly looking at me, and I'm like, I'm not walking today, Christina. she finally got the hint, you know, and she walked out the room, came back with the doctor, and he's like, "You're not walking today?" I'm like, "No." And but I remember after a while, the doctors told me, they're like, "Hey, first thing to get you out of here, because I was like, when can I go home? When can I go home?" They're like, first thing you got to do is get off your PCA, the drip. And then I was like, take it. And they're like, we've never stopped anybody cold turkey. And I'm like, I'm not anybody, I'm somebody. And the doctor's like, we got to monitor you for 24 hours. I'm like, all right. So in that first 24-hour period, I used it one time. Now, was I in pain? Yeah. Fuck yeah, I was. But I wanted to go home. And I knew I had my wife and my kids to go home too. And the next morning they come in and they're like, you only use it once? And I was like, yeah, to get it out, get it off. No, we got to do another 24 hours. So they do monitor another 24 hours. And I didn't use it at all that go around. And they come in the second day and they, you know, has a little computer. So they see that I didn't use it. So they're like, all right, we'll start you on oral pain meds and get you off of the PCA and start the process to get you discharged. And I was like, all right. And they came in. It was actually another Garcia as well, but he was Filipino. He comes in to disconnect me and shit, you know, take the PCA. And he was cool. He's like, hey, man, you want to hit before I take it? I was like, fuck yeah. So I get it. Because I was in pain, man, like I said. But I was pushing through it because I wanted to go home. And so they disconnect the PCA and they take it. And then they bring me my pain meds, the oxys. And I take them and I had, you know, my body already has so much dope inside of it. So I it didn't have a reaction, you know. I just took the pills and I couldn't eat or drink anything. And like the first meal I had was chicken broth, straight chicken broth. I took 2-3 spoonfuls, man, and I was full. And I was like, I guess that's like a way of having a gastro bypass or something, because I got down, man, to about 160 something. When I remember when they weighed me and the nurse goes, you're like 163, 165. I was like, no, that's incorrect. I'm like 200 something pounds of pure muscle. And I'm like, weigh me again. She weighs me again and she's like, beep, 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 165 or whatever it was. And I'm like, what the hell? How did I lose that much weight in that, you know, that fast? But having part of your intestines removed, you know, like that'll do it, you know. And then I was tubed and, you know, I didn't eat till about just shy of about 3 weeks or a month.
Damn.
You know, and then after I held the chicken broth, then I got some chicken tenders. I remember that. And I ate like half of one and I was stuffed, man. I just could not eat. You know, I guess your stomach shrinks, you know, when you don't eat for so long and you're just tubed, you know. Yeah. But, yeah, man, so I get out. I get discharged from inpatient and they put me, it's like outpatient, like the barracks for Walter Reed. Mm-hmm. And I spent another month there. But yet again, it was surgery. I'd go in for a regular follow-up. They find something and it's surgery again. And
was it all just from complications or?
Yeah, because like the shrapnel that I still have within me, they would find shrapnel here or there or like more internal bleeding or like something. And it was just, I'd spend a few days in the hospital, man. And then finally after that second month, I get home and I actually beat the guys home from Afghanistan. And that was one of my goals. Like, I wanted to go home, like, back to Bragg. I'm like, when can I go to Bragg? And when I got home, April, I can't remember the date, but I remember the guys came home, like, April 20-something, and I met them at Green Ramp. And everybody was shocked, like, what the fuck are you doing here? I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, I didn't die. Yeah. You know, like, a lot of guys thought I was going to die, you know, like, that's how bad I was. But I beat them home. And that was one of my goals, was just, you know, I would stay with the family, be here for the family, but beat the guys home, like meet them. And I met them at Green Ramp, and everybody, like when I saw Zach, the shooter that shot the shooter, I walk up to him, I was like, hey man, he's like, don't do it. And I was like, thanks man. He's like, no. Like he didn't want he didn't want any accolades, you know. He did his job, you know. He smoked the dude that, you know, turned on us. But, about the next trip, man, that's why like, I tell people it's okay to not be okay. Like, if you need help, go get help. Because I didn't think I needed help either until certain instances happened, you know, that my wife looked at me and she's like, you need fucking help. Like, behavioral mental health. Like, I thought I was fine. Like, most dudes are, right? Like, I don't need help. Like, I can talk to my brothers and that helps, but none of us are professionals. You know, we don't have certificates, degrees, and everything to prescribe medications and everything, you know? So Zach ended up killing himself.
Oh, shit.
He had survivor's guilt.
God damn. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he committed suicide in Africa. So...
That's crazy.
Because he had survivor's guilt. He said he should have acted faster, reacted faster. He should have, could have, would have done this. And he couldn't live with it, man. And he offed himself. So that's why I tell people, it's okay to not be okay. Like, if you need help, go get help. Talking to your brothers is cool, but they're not, you know, we're there for one another. But if we're not professionals, sometimes you need medication because our brains are wired differently. So if you need a medication to bridge that gap that these two neurons or whatnot aren't connecting, you need to go get help, man. Like, and that's why I tell people, like, I had a strong support channel, you know, like my wife, my kids, friends, family. You know, if it wasn't for a lot of them, especially my wife, like I said, she was stronger than I am, dude. Like, everything we've been through, and that's why we're still together, you know, like we're, you know, we'll be hitting 16 years this summer, you know, married. And it's been, like I said, coming up on 10 years from my incident. So, you know, she had to deal with my shit for that long. Yeah. So, but that's what I tell people, man. It's like, the recovery was, like, I had to learn how to work out again and breathe. Like, for example, like, people take a deep breath with their chest. Mm-hmm. It's called belly breathing. You get, because your lungs are designed to go down and out, not up and in. Mm-hmm. So, like, I had to learn how to breathe and, you know, work out again. And there's organizations out there that helped me out. They got me a bike, a rower, you know, like, just shit to get back in shape and be better, you know. And like I said, I know I can never lift the weights that I used to lift, but I'm okay with working out with lightweight, high reps, mm-hmm. you know, because at least I could work out. Yeah. So, and that's why it's you got to stay in shape, man. That's why one of the days, one of the doctors, he tells me, he was at the end of my bed before I got up and started walking. He's had his arms crossed and he fixes his glasses and he goes, you're lucky to be alive. And I'm like, no shit, doc. And then he goes, you know, you were built just right. He goes, if you were too skinny, that round would have broke you like a potato chip. And if you were too big, it would have ripped through all your fat and everything else. And he's like, you were built just right. Because like I said, I was pretty solid. Yeah. I was working out with Tico, you know, lifting heavy. Like, we're doing the 5 sets of 5, you know, just getting strong. And I remember, like, he told me, like, you were built just right. And that's what I'm saying. Everything happened for a reason. Like, I was in shape, you know, and now, like, I could be in better shape. We all can, you know, but... Yeah. Like I said, I know I'll never lift the numbers, the pounds that I did, you know, before I got injured because all my shit's still held by mesh. And like they told me, your insides will not be inside held by that mesh. If I strain too much or if I can't even gain too much weight. Like, and right now I'm a little heavier than I ought to be because they told me all the mesh, you know, holding all my intestines together, if I get any bigger, that mesh won't be holding my guts inside, you know. So I got to maintain a certain weight.
Yeah, you gotta live with it.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm still stuck on the fucking guilt that caused Zach to kill himself, man. Because of course, we know about all the suicides that's taking place within the group. And survivor's guilt is a thing. That's why I try to tell these folks, you know, like, go get the fucking help, man.
Yeah.
Like, we're not, you know, too big to go get it. You know what I mean? And I know we have the stigma in the organization that guys don't like to go talk to the shrink. I'm past that shit now, you know what I mean? Like, every chance I get, you know, like, I'll go talk to somebody just to let it all out, because if you don't, you know, it's going to lead to fucking suicide, right?
And there is, like I had survivor's guilt at first. When I got home, the first time I drank alcohol, man, like, I got drunk the first time, and I had to why me? Why me? Why me? Why did I survive? Why did Tico die? Why did John die? Why did Zach, you know, off himself? And like, I had the why me factor, you know. And then it took a while, like I said, not just behavioral health, but it took my wife, you know, family, be like, hey, why you? Because there's one man that wants you here, you know, one man with a plan, you know. And it took a lot of realization, a lot of wake up calls, man, for me to realize, like, I don't know why me. And to this day, I still don't know why me, but I have a chance to find out why. You know, what my purpose is in life, I don't know, but I have a chance to find it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and then there's treatments out there, man. Like I got the ketamine therapy treatment too, and that helped out. Like talking, like it's a dissociation medication, so like I was able to, under professional care, obviously with the professional, in the room, you get administered ketamine through an IV, and I was able to talk about all my issues, man. And like the first time I talked about what brought me there was my PTSD, these dudes, and I was lying there or sitting up in the recliner, and I'm under ketamine, and I was talking about my issues, and I remember one tear forming up, and I'm thinking to myself internally, I was like, dude, I'm about to cry. And that one tear rolled down into my beard when I had my big ass beard, and it disappeared, right? And then from there on, like I was able to just get everything off my chest, and that's why there's other treatments and just ketamine therapy treatment like that's out there to help folks,
Yeah.
But that's the thing. First step of everything is acceptance.
Yeah.
You accept that you have issues, you need help. That's the first thing you got to do before you go get the help to make you a better person. Because like I said, I have wife, 2 kids, and friends and family that I care about. They care about me, So that's why it doesn't make you less of a man if you go get help.
Yeah.
So
I agree 100%, man.
And that's why I tell people, man, you gotta stay strong. Like you could be physically strong, but if you're weak up here, that's gonna be detrimental to yourself, and to those around you. Because like I said, I walk around and all my shit's covered up. Nobody knows what happened.
Yeah, I didn't know until you showed me and you started telling me, and I was like, holy fuck, like
yeah,
because 2013. I was stateside getting ready to go downrange because I deployed in 2014. But I didn't know until you and I started talking about it. Yep. You showed me the scars and shit. I was like, holy fuck. And then you told me all the stories. And I was like, I had no idea. You know what I mean? Because we oftentimes thinks that, all that stuff happens to just, SF guys. Like, but I would have never thought, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's what I tell people, man. Like, and people that like brag and boast about their stories and this and that, like I don't have to prove myself to anybody. I have myself to prove it to, and the man upstairs, and it's like, and I cover my shit, it's covered up, so nobody really knows until, like you said, we start talking and sharing stories, but I don't need to brag about anything. I got the scars to prove all my stories, and like people that over exaggerate or something, like, they're trying to compensate for something, I believe.
Yeah.
Because of those who know, those who have been and done, ain't got shit to prove to anybody.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. Shit. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing that, man, because I know a lot of guys have hard times sharing what they've gone through, but I think you sharing your story of, what took place, the recovery, and then getting the help for the mental health, I always put these out in hopes that somebody watching it is like, holy shit, like, I need to go get help, or else this is going to be me, right? So I appreciate you coming on and sharing this with the folks, man. Like, hopefully
man,
it fucking help somebody.
Like I said, if I reach just one person, that's a success.
Yeah, that's all that matters, man.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, folks, again, Jose Garcia, spent some time with 2nd Battalion, Charlie Company, 3rd Special Forces Group. I just wanted him to come on here, share his stories with you. If you have any questions, guys, leave it in the comment section below. Myself or Jose will get on there and we'll answer that question for you. Now, I know you linked up with the crew that was actually involved in your case. Did you learn anything new from them as far as where you're going to make it or you're not going to make it? Do you remember?
Yeah.
They told you anything crazy?
When
it was a big deal.
Yeah, when I talked to the flight nurse, he was a civilian nurse, but contracting. When I found out how much blood I got, just administered blood transfusions, which ended up being a total of 56 units. And an average human has 8 to 10, so I received a total of 56. But I remember him telling me on the bird that I was gonna make it, and that everything's gonna be fine. But we became friends. Now we still can meet. We actually just talked for New Year's, And but he told me that, bro, you were bad. He didn't think I was gonna make it. So I know, like, when I had the reunion with the medevac crew, it was awesome, man. And you know, just knowing what they went through too, you know, to get to me, to get us, you know, the birds, it was such a hostile LZ that the third bird limped back to Bagram because they got shot up, you know. So, but I was on the first bird, 1 out of 3, because that's how many casualties, like I said, we had. But the third bird limped back to Bagram. But like I said, they didn't think I was gonna make it.
Well, somebody up there has a plan, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm glad. Me personally, I'm glad you made it, right? So
Yeah, same here.
But yeah, folks. Again, if you have any questions for us, let us know in the comment section below. Hopefully, you guys get something from this. All right. Until next time, guys. Take care of yourself.